With CFL Commissioner Randy Ambrosie here at the Go-Goat Sports Studio. First of all, nice to see you. Welcome back to Vancouver.
Well, it is great to be here, and look at us, guys. We're sitting here together. We're not masked, and I was going to say the sun is shining. It's not,
No,
but being with you,
Proverbially shining.
Yeah.
that's right. It feels like it's shining.
Well, the sun is shining for CFL fans in this regard. Randy, a full 18-game schedule starting at a time of year when CFL fans are accustomed to their games. How much will that alone be received and welcomed by you and your lot?
Yeah, I think, frankly, we're all just there's such a craving everywhere I've been, whether you're talking about sports or just everyday life, people want to get back to something that feels, and I use the air quotes a lot, it seems normal. And just feels so good to be thinking like this time of year, it's early May. We're thinking about football. We're getting ready for football. We're talking about football games. It just feels right. And I know CFL fans want to get back to it. So, yeah, it's a pretty exciting time for us.
You have a new owner here of the British Columbia Lions. What are your impressions of Amar Doman?
Well, look, it's almost overwhelming to think about how good a fit there is here to have Amar and his family, here with the Lions and their long-term commitment. I'm so impressed by Amar and his vision for what he wants the Lions to be. They really want this. They want to embrace this community in a very powerful way. They want that Lions brand to be part of the everyday life of people here in not only in Vancouver, but the Lower Mainland and all of BC, in fact. You just got to be so impressed by his energy, his vision. And I've had a chance to work with him directly on a few files, and it's not hard to tell why he's been a success.
This community is a little bit unique versus other communities. The demographic of this fan base is older, and they're having trouble replenishing from the bottom. You see that replenishment in other markets, though, in the Winnipegs and Saskatchewans, where they do get that younger generation. Is there anything you can extract out of those markets and bring to Vancouver, or is it so unique that Amar Doman has to find a unique way to get the younger fan?
Well, there's always some common themes that you track, and there are some ideas that I think we borrow from each other across the 9 markets, and then there are some specific differences that you need to pay attention to. It's one of the reasons why we're excited about the Genius Sports Partnership. Genius is one of the world's largest sports marketing and technology businesses, and this is what they do. They have technologies and strategies and tools to help kind of dig into those market specific opportunities. I think we'll take advantage of that here and across the country. But another part of it is you've got to create that atmosphere in the stadium for that young audience to want to be part of it. Look, and just using Winnipeg as an example, they've done that really well. They've created that, like they call it the Rum Hut, and it's basically a party area. Ottawa's done a great job of that in their end zone.
Even Hamilton's end zone too.
Hamilton's. Yeah. I mean, I think there's some common themes here. You've got to be fast and you got to be fun and it's got to be entertaining. That's why the product changes, the rule changes about making the game fun and fast and entertaining. I think that's what's going to bring the young fans in, and I think we're on the right track.
Yeah. We'll talk about the rule changes sort of bit by bit throughout this, but you were also with the shorter season. It seemed like the players had some rust. The synchronization of plays. It seemed like everybody, from coaches to players, were a little bit rusty last year. You have to think the product's just going to look better this year too.
Oh, look, you have to take your hat off to the players. Look, for so many of them, so they were training under weird and completely different circumstances. For some of them, the only training facility it had was the jungle gym in their backyard, right? Like
it's a lot of pull-ups.
There's a lot of pull-ups. But no, I think you got to tip your hat to the coaches and the players for what they gave us last year. But again, with a whole off season and all the training and the prep, and these are world-class athletes. I think they're going to come to training camps ready to play. I think it's going to be an amazing season of football. And then I keep going back to it, sprinkle in some of these rule changes that really are designed around making the game fast and fun. I think it's going to be an amazing season.
Get to a couple of those real changes in a second, Randy. First, back here on Vancouver and this new owner, Amar Doman, who we're quite fascinated with, and must say, Blake and I were hugely impressed when we first started reading about him and then interviewing him. What's the best thing he's done this offseason?
Well, I would say I think they're building a strategic long-term plan for success here to have a prominent place in the market. That's I from my vantage point, that's so important. Is
Mhm.
you have to want. Yeah, it starts with what do you want to be when you're all grown up.
Mhm.
I think Amar knows very well what he wants this team to be, working with Rick. But then you look at the football side and look at what they've done. I was listening to Rick Campbell talk about getting the 2 draft picks they really wanted. One on the offensive line, one on the defensive line. Personally, I know you can never go wrong by selecting an offensive lineman
Right.
high in the draft. I have some personal experience with that, but
Yes.
I can tell you that that's true. But everything they do seems to have a feeling of purpose. So if you wanted me to identify one thing, I think they are operating with a strong sense of purpose in everything they do. There doesn't feel to be a single random thing happening here.
Mm.
It's all about part of a plan, part of a strategy, and building towards a future that Amar has defined for this football club.
We're with the second pick of the 1985 Canadian College Draft at the University of Manitoba.
I had completely forgotten about that, by the way.
Sure. Offensive lineman Randy Ambrosie. They're going to have a big concert and a big kickoff special for the opener at BC Place. But is that lasting? Is that something in and of itself that if you throw a good party on opening day can bring people back, or does it have to be a little bit drill deeper than that?
Well, look, what I would say is I don't see Rick Lawlisher and Amar Doman as doing anything that's about one thing. I think they're doing everything that's about how one thing connects to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And that to me is what's going to make them special here. Is there's not a single random thing they're doing. If they're going to do a big show on opening day, I can tell you it's with a sense of purpose, and it's going to lead to the next thing they want to do. Clearly, what Amar and Rick want to do is send a message that we're here and we're building for the future, but there's a lot in behind that plan.
I like the prospects of winning back uh, the CFL fan that was. But there's a lot of sports fans here in Vancouver who are tough nuts to crack and, have sworn off the CFL and they are seemingly impenetrable to win back, seemingly. What would you say to those fans? That are sports fans that are theoretically customers?
Well, when we did what I believe is the largest market research study in the league's history, the thing we did back late last year, early in January, it told us that there are clusters of fans who are not necessarily watching us today, but they gave us insights into what it would take to have them come back. And those are large universes of potential fans.
Mhm.
And that's one of the primary things that guided our product review. Is they told us this is what we would look to in order to come back to the CFL. So again, there may be somebody out there, it probably, Joe, let's call him, that's not coming back. But there's a lot of Joe's friends and relatives and neighbors and in this community that will come back. And that's why we get a buzz. We make some changes. We drive fun, fast, and exciting as a mantra. I think we're going to get a lot of people that'll be attracted to this game and this brand of football.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy in some ways. It's chicken or egg, really. How do you get that that rolling? Because if I see on TV a game where there's a ton of fans there, I want to go there. But how do you get those fans in there initially, right? And to have that fun so that it spreads like wildfire and you come back week after week. The lure of a spectacle, but you got to create those first couple of spectacles so that word spreads. It's a tough pattern to create initially, isn't it?
It is, but we have a good nucleus and a good base here from which to build on.
Mm-hmm.
But look, I think the greatest thing you do is you put a 49-49 game with a minute left to go. We know that TV ratings start to spike in a close game at the end. That's been a hallmark of the CFL. 49-49 with a minute left to go. And you're at home, you're in a bar, you hear there's a great game, you watch, you turn it on. It's compelling, it's exciting, it's fast, and it's fun. And that's the beginning of getting the fan to say, I'm going to go to the game. It looked like it was a lot of fun. And then they go and
That's
it is
exactly
a lot
right.
of fun.
Yeah.
So, again, I believe when you look at things the way Amar and Rick are looking at them, is you have to build momentum and you have to deliver on the promise that you're committed to that fun, fast, and entertaining brand of football and a culture inside the stadium that is going to be great for families, great for fans, great for young fans, a lot of fun, a lot of energy. I think, again, I'm just convinced they're doing everything here with a sense of purpose towards building that base of fans from where it is to where we all want it to be, that jam-packed BC Place Stadium.
We used to hear a lot about ticket prices, Randy, under David Braley. Were they too high under the previous ownership group? How do you think Amar is doing? And what's your general sense of where the ticket price should be?
Well, look,
one of
the hallmarks of our league is that we're a very affordable league to be a fan of. And I think that's something we can be awfully proud of. Again, I'm not going to comment on what it was like with David or in fact the specific strategies that Rick and Mar will have. But I think we can all acknowledge that we're a league that's accessible. Okay, and it's not just ticket prices. That I think is a part of it. But we're accessible because our players are accessible, because our guys are out in the community. You go back to you talked about Bobby Ackles earlier, and you talked what Mr. Ackles did. And I was a huge fan of Mr. Ackles. He was everywhere. He was in the community building, talking about the Lions and building. I think Amar and Rick have a strategy to do that same thing, to get this team out into the community, have those players and coaches and Rick himself and Amar kind of creating those bridges out to the community and starting to use that to attract fans in. So ticket pricing is important because it is about accessibility.
So a family of four, should they get in for $100, Randy? Like in most seats, maybe not the club seats, the best seats, but should you be able to get a family of four into the stadium for $100?
Probably not fair for me to comment on that price point specifically, but I do believe that in the long and storied history of our league, and I got my own experience in Winnipeg growing up, there was a place for me to go and be in the stadium as a young Winnipegger to cheer on my Bombers, and there was a place for me to be at a price point that my folks could afford.
And the Lions do have a kids zone.
And you know what? So many CFL fans that you talk to, my dear friend Paul Graham from TSN will tell you he grew up in that knothole section, and they got in for very little. Or you talk to somebody in Hamilton who was scaled a tree and watched the games from the top of
you can do that in Hamilton.
But seriously, it is about making sure that we have a way of getting those young people into the stadiums, because they will fall in love with a player.
Sure.
And that's the beginning of a lifetime long love affair with the game.
Lions also have kids prices at the concession stand.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, the snacks got cheaper too. Okay, so let's get into the product, which you want to make more exciting, and I feel like this has been a file that you've taken on since you assumed the helm. The rule changes. I think there's going to be some rule changes that immediately people are just like, what? Two QBs allowed on the field. What do you think is the most impactful rule change? Because we spent a lot of time just chit-chatting with you before we turned the mics on about the hash marks. Is that maybe the most consequential of all of them, do you think?
It's the one that personally I'm most excited about. And I, what I'm hearing from all of our football people, and I loved listening to the conversation, now, under the old hash mark strategy, the problem was your short side of the field was not a lot of room to maneuver. So let's say not as fertile. From the left hash to the right sideline was too far. No coaches didn't want the quarterbacks making that long horizontal throw. So that said that basically now we were actually playing 11-man football, because you're wide out to the wide side and you're cornered covering that.
They're just negating each other.
They were just basically irrelevant.
Yeah.
So now moving those hashes in means we got this whole field. Hey, look, the math on this thing is we have about more than 600 square feet per player of extra space than the other game has. And if we've created one thing, I think it's an opportunity for our offensive coordinators to use the entire canvas that is the CFL field. That to me is going to open up our game. And I think I believe, and I'm hopeful that in the long term, that proves to be one of the changes that will lead us to that fun, fast, and incredibly entertaining brand of football. 49-49 with a minute left to go, and then I'm a happy guy.
Did you explore no hash marks or like just one straight down the middle?
That
No,
never
really?
came
Okay.
up, but I think immediately there was some a very positive energy around the high potential of moving the hash marks in, and again, super excited about what that one thing.
With rule changes come unintended consequences. How much did you mitigate that? How much did you talk about, okay, if we move the hash mark, what are the other effects outside of just the field side being a shorter throw and the boundary side being more
Is that a
fertile
coaches
ground?
roundtable to
Yeah,
get that
yeah.
info?
Well, it's why there's good process, and so you start with a large market research study that gave us defined what we were aspiring to do. So really was about game flow. It was about scoring. It was about entertainment. Okay, so you start there. And then we basically took that to our football people and our rules committee and said, look, we need to look for ways to achieve these outcomes, and they did a great job. Our management council was involved, our team presidents. We had a session with all of our coaches, GMs, head coaches, GMs, and presidents. It was one of the best CFL meetings I've attended in my time. The energy in that room around thinking about everything, right? Like how would it work, and what would be the upside, what would be the downside? I think the guys, to answer your question, I think they did a pretty darn good job of figuring out what the pluses and minuses were. But in the end, I know they all believed that this was an important change to make with the goal of fun, fast, and incredibly entertaining football.
I was going to move on. Do you want to pick
No,
another?
go ahead.
Back to BC, Canadian quarterbacks, the unicorn. There are two of them here. Two unicorns?
Yeah.
I mean, we were looking for the unicorn, and now they have a stable of unicorns. What do you think of the approach? And I mean, that alone could be a great marketing tool, but of course, they do want to win football games as well. Can both be accomplished here.
Well, look, I think every commissioner, going back to Mr. Goddard, was asked this question. Russ Jackson set this standard, right? Mr. Jackson, who I see quite often, and one of the greatest players, if not the greatest player in CFL history, set a bar for Canadian quarterbacks that very hard to achieve. But you got to be excited about what they're doing here. I was here for the final game to watch Nathan play, and I think you'd have to say he impressed all of us. His poise, his physical capabilities, incredibly talented. But he looked so poised in that game. I don't think there's a CFL fan that's not looking forward to seeing what he is going to do under center this year for the Lions. And of course, you've got a second very capable young man, a Canadian quarterback, with him. I love the strategy. I love what they're going to. I look again just on the strength of what I've seen from Nathan. I think there's a real good chance that he becomes a tremendous story for the Canadian Football League.
Well, we hope so, and we hope it's a tremendous year for the Canadian Football League. Commissioner, thanks for stopping by. Much obliged for the time.